Hey everyone, welcome back to Firsthand Globetrotting. I'm back with part 2 of my trip to Germany. Since I haven't been able to travel for a while, this is a throwback to a trip I took in 2015. And again, apologies if the footage isn't as good as my newer stuff. If you missed part 1, the link is in the video description. In it, I explore the streets of Frankfurt, take a boat ride down the Rhine River, wander around some riverfront towns, and explore a hilltop castle. But don't worry, in this video I have even more great stuff to show you. It's day 3, and after leaving Frankfurt, I decided to take a trip down the Romantic Road. It's a tourist road that takes you from near Frankfurt in Würzburg down to near the Austrian border. It seemed like a bit of a tourist trap, but hey, that's never stopped me before. My first stop was in Rothenburg. It's known for its old medieval city center, so I knew it was definitely a place I wanted to check out. And just as I hoped, it lived up to expectations. If you had asked me to describe my idea of an old German city, Rothenburg was nearly identical to what I would have said. Stone streets, nice looking older architecture for the buildings, and steep pointed roofs. And check out the market square where the town hall is, a really beautiful spot to sit and soak in Rothenburg. Walking around here gave a nice contrast to the huge, busy financial city of Frankfurt and the tiny, quiet riverside towns along the Rhine. This one was more in the middle, with the charm of the small towns mixed with a steady stream of tourists everywhere. The streets were nice, but there was something I liked even more about Rothenburg. Since this was an old imperial city, you probably guessed that it had a wall protecting it, right? There's an old tower right along one of the main tourist roads, so you can walk through it as you explore the city. I really love when the old town features are integrated into the modern day city. And luckily, the wall is still in good shape so you can climb up to the top and have a look around. I walked along the narrow little wall path to see what the view was like up there. There weren't any spectacular viewpoints or things to see, but you can really see how pretty much every building in the city has a red roof. It was definitely fun walking along the wall, imagining what the city must have looked like hundreds of years ago. Almost like I was a guard patrolling the city, and every now and then looking out the holes to see what was going on outside. I was hoping to find a place that had the classic look and feel of an old German city, and Rothenburg definitely delivered. It makes sense why it's such a popular stop along the Romantic Road. My next stop was around an hour down the road at Harburg Castle. It's a medieval castle from the 11th century, which is why I made sure to pop by to see it. I found it pretty imposing when you walk towards the lower gate and get ready to enter into the castle. When I looked up, I could just see the main keep looming over top of me. And check out the heavy gates, ready to drop down to keep out any trouble. I could definitely picture some rich, noble family living here, since it was almost like its own tiny town inside the castle's walls with a big central courtyard. I drove about an hour and a half down the Romantic Road and then made a little detour to get to my next stop at Weiss Church. There's not really that much around it. It's kind of out in a field, so you wouldn't really expect there to be a tourist attraction here. As I got closer, the church is actually bigger than I expected. Being on its own actually made it seem a lot smaller. Honestly though, it looks like a pretty standard church from the outside. But wow, as soon as I stepped through the front door, it was a completely different story. Everything was so plain on the outside, so you don't expect to see the loud Rococo design of the inside. It has lots of white and pastel coloring, curving architecture, and ornate decorations everywhere you look. And check out that ceiling. A huge, beautiful mural taking up every inch of space and flowing around the other features of the church. I found the main altar didn't really take up much space compared to most other big churches I've visited, but it packs in a lot of detail. As I was looking at it, I was just trying to take in all of the little figures and designs and symbols and artwork. It's almost overwhelming when you first start looking around the church because the design of it is so busy and there's so much going on. I have no clue how such a beautiful church ended up in such an unexpected location, but it was definitely worth the detour. Next up was Oberammergau, a village nearby in the Bavarian Alps. It was more of just a quick pit stop for me on this trip, but the really cool thing about it is its passion play. Once every 10 years for the past few hundred years, the villagers put on a play about the passion period of Jesus' life. Not just a once-a-year event, a once-in-a-decade event. How cool is that? Unfortunately, I was 5 years too late to see it. Today was a quick and hectic trip down the romantic road. I only made a few stops, the ones that I thought would be the highlights, but you could easily make this into a multi-day drive and see so much more. But I had big plans for day 4, seeing some breathtaking castles. My first castle of the day was Hohenschwangau. I think you'll agree with me that the castle looks pretty nice on its own, but it's the surroundings that really make it impressive. Forests everywhere you look, a beautiful lake, and then the Bavarian Alps providing a perfect backdrop. The mountain view was definitely my favorite part, it just made for such an amazing landscape. The castle sits on a little hill, helping it stand out from the natural beauty around it. Inside the castle walls, everything seemed very royal. It was filled with fountains and gardens, nice and peaceful. The main castle building was really nice too. The architectural design made it really look like a noble castle, plus there were some nice decorations all around that add to the atmosphere. But this was just the opener. See that castle up in the distance? That's Neuschwanstein Castle perched up in the mountains. It's actually not too far away, so I was able to walk from one castle to the other. It took about 45 minutes and was mostly uphill through the forest. But if you want, there's a bus that goes up there too. Every now and then I'd see the castle peeking out over the trees. It made for a really nice walk, giving me some different views of Neuschwanstein. The best way to describe it is a fairy tale castle. Growing up, this is a style of castle I remember from cartoons and Disney movies. The walls and towers and details are just exactly what I picture in my head when I think of castles. And look at the amazing view it gives. I wasn't alone though. It's super popular, so there were big crowds with a steady stream of tour buses bringing in people for a visit. Honestly, I liked the outside way more than the inside. You can only go inside with guided tours, so it's a pretty rushed and cramped experience. It looks fine inside, but the outside is definitely the best feature. And there's Hohenschwangau Castle down there. I can see why King Ludwig built his castle up here. Just an incredible view of the mountains and lakes and forests and nearby villages. It's nearly the perfect spot. I was in the right part of Germany at the right time of year, so on day 5 I went to Munich for Oktoberfest. Unfortunately, it was raining outside, so I didn't spend too much time wandering around the fairgrounds. It was definitely more of an indoor day. But hey, that's what Oktoberfest is all about, right? There were these huge beer tent pavilions, and it seemed like every brewery had their own. It was really cool seeing the different designs on them and how many of them there were everywhere. But finding a spot in one of the tents was easier said than done. The first one I tried was already full. But luckily, I found a spot in the next one. Oktoberfest was as big of a party as I expected. Even though it was only noon, it was already getting pretty wild inside. I spent the rest of the afternoon there and was so glad I got to experience it myself. Such a great time. So that's it, the end of my trip to Germany. I had an amazing visit and got to experience a lot. I got to start and end in some great German cities. And in the middle, I got to spend some time exploring smaller towns, seeing some incredible examples of Germany's natural beauty, learning about its medieval history, and seeing a whole bunch of different castles. I've been lucky enough to travel to Germany a few times over the years, and it's always a really fun place to visit. I can't wait until I can go back again. That's it for this video. If you have any questions, ask me in the comments. And while you're at it, like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. On Twitter, I'm Firsthand Globe. On Instagram, I'm Firsthand Globetrotting. Follow me on there. And don't forget, it's an incredible world out there, so pick up your passport and do some firsthand globetrotting of your own.